to the show. This is the podcast about property development for, by, and holding hands with property developers and the big players in the property development industry. My name's Giulio D, and this is a podcast brought to you, of course, by the guys at Dadshed. We're going to get to some great guests, and we have some really exciting stuff coming up for you. We can't wait to share this journey with you as we showcase the best of what developers are up to. So without further ado, for anyone who isn't familiar with yourself, it's Giulio D'Andrea. Hopefully I've not embarrassed myself too much with the Italian pronunciation.
You've done well.
It's good first attempt. Welcome to the show. And for anyone not familiar with your work, you're welcome. Tell us a bit about yourself, what got you into property developing, and what are you really up to at the moment that you'd love to let everybody know about?
Sure. So I'm a director of a company called Global Vtech. It's a family business. It's second generation. My father started it in the 70s. We now are a main contractor property development company, and we specialize in doing development and helping SME developers incorporate MMC construction into their developments.
Global actually started as a vehicle manufacturer. So for 30 to 40 years, we manufactured bespoke exhibition vehicles inside a factory. So we're very familiar with factory environments and building stuff in a factory. And we've worked with all sorts of companies. In the 90s, we were probably one of the biggest vehicle manufacturers in the UK.
So you name a brand, we've built something for them. Car companies, Volvo, Vodafone, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, the sort of list is endless. When the Freelander first got introduced in the 90s, for argument's sake, we created a truck that folded out onto a bridge, so you could drive the Freelander on top of the bridge, and underneath the bridge was a sales office, so they could obviously sell their vehicle. So we did all sorts of really very sort of bespoke engineering. And as a result of that, that's how we got into property, because every time we expanded, we essentially brought land and built our own factory.
So over the years, we've probably built 5 or 6 of our own factories. And as a result of that, we used to get clients coming to us asking us, can you build us a factory? So in turn, we built factories for other clients. And that's really what got us into property development and also got us into MMC construction. So in 2005, 2006, we had a contract to build a power station, and we decided to use an MMC system from Italy to build it because of its blast-proof and fire-proof nature of the system, and because we were building a power station, if something was to happen, we could contain an explosion. In 2006, we actually used a system to build a house to test the system out in Peterborough. Unfortunately, the financial crisis happened in 2008 and we lost the contract to build the power station, but we kept in contact with the Italian system, and we've been trying to build stuff using the system
ever since. It's called an ICF, so insulated concrete framework, which back then no one really knew what it was, and even laughed at us when we told us this is what we were building stuff out of. Now there are probably 10, 15 good ICF suppliers in the UK that you can all turn in. It's a pretty common building technique now and building system, and so that's how we sort of got into the property development side. And very recently, sort of in the last I would say couple of 3 to 4 years, we've really just focused on property development and thing. We do still have a steel fabrication arm of the business. So we still do steel fabrication, but again, we tend to only do steel fabrication for developers or modular providers, because a lot of volumetric modular providers will need steel fabricators. So we still do a lot of that. And we've done a lot of pretty good, cool steel fab projects over the years. So we did a lot of the steel fabrication at King's Cross Station. Leicester Square, we did all the balustrades around Leicester Square, so that was a pretty cool project.
So we still have the steel fabricating arm of the business, but our predominant arm is really panelized MMC construction, predominantly home building. So we're in the home building, house building sector. So that's probably a little bit about us, and that's I guess that's our USP as well, is that we are predominantly helping the SME house builder to incorporate MMC into their developments to help them lower build costs and build time. So that's really what we aim to do.
Fantastic, and a very worthy aim, of course. But I think also you made an interesting point there about, as you say, you were innovators in that space, in the mid 2006. That's a really, it's a really interesting story there, that you were trailblazing, although it didn't work out, as you say. Now you kind of got that, maybe it takes a while to come back to you, but at least you've got that satisfaction to know that, well, as you say, you were absolutely on the right track, and eventually things, have gone that way. And one of the things that I know can be a bit of a sticking point, of course, and the clues in the name, of course, is during the process, we've got the whole snagging scenario and how to kind of deal with all that. So is there anything that during your, many years of experience, obviously you've been in the game a long time, family business, etc., how do you sort of approach that, and how do you see kind of where developers need to go in terms of minimizing, issues there, and how to kind of stay on top of that?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting question. So for many years, because we built so much stuff in a factory, we could control snagging and problems ourselves because it was all under a controlled environment, and hence why I'm a big fan of volumetric construction, because again, same principles apply. We can keep it all in a factory, we can manage any snags within a factory, and we can and manage the sort of clients' expectations a lot easier. On site, it becomes a lot more difficult because a lot more things are out of your control, and it becomes more labor intense to manage stuff.
So typically, if we, as the main contractor, we will have a sort of quality control, whether it be the site manager that will go around and double check everything, mark everything that has been missed or needs to look at. We do use a project management software where it allows someone to go around with their mobile phone and take pictures of any problems that they see, and then they can mark it on the app, and that logs into our project management system. So whoever's on site can go back and make sure those snags are dealt with. This is all before it gets to a customer, so before it's sold. So it's obviously a lot easier to manage it that way.
Once the property's been sold, because we mainly work with sort of developers then doing many developments ourselves, a lot of our developers don't really have anything that's sufficient in place to be able to manage it. It's all very much done through, somebody will buy the house, will then probably start to send an email with problems that they're seeing to one of the it usually starts with the estate agent and then trickles down to the developer from there. Some developers will probably be slightly more savvy, where they'll use maybe Dropbox or something like that to keep a list of snags that they may have. But I don't know of any sort of developer that uses one specific good tool for snagging after the development's been handed over to the end user. Yes, there are project management stuff that can do that whilst you're still developing, but actually after it's been handed over to a customer, it's there's not much that I know about that software that people use.
As you say, because being able to have the control so far through the process, obviously you're kind of sort of ahead of the curve on that, which is great to hear. Now you've mentioned a lot about the differentiators with what you do, as you say, the control being in sort of in factory. On the sort of design front, is there anything that you specifically look for, whether it would be sort of features or green features or anything sort of sustainable or anything other that's over and above what you've mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. We concentrate, say, more on the fabric of the walls rather than, say, the finished design aspects. A lot of the SME developers we work with are in the sort of affordable housing space, Help to Buy bracket. So we tend not to do a lot of high-end homes. We tend not to do, say, our kitchens are very standard range kitchens. Bathrooms are very standard range finishes. So there's never anything too out of the ordinary that that we do in properties, because the reality is out of the ordinary features do cost more money, and therefore then doesn't necessarily make the house affordable.
But what we do try to do is incorporate MMC systems like ICF or certain timber frame systems that will be able to provide a wall fabric that provides a U value of a passive house standard. So what we are trying to do is provide affordable, much more sustainable homes. So, you know, in 2025, there'll be no gas in homes anyway. So we are incorporating more air source heat pumps and more mechanical MVHR units into the property, so we don't have reliance on gas, and the electricity bills are low. But it really has to start with the fabric of the walls, and to make sure that the properties are airtight, their U values are 0.1, 0.18, sort of around that sort of range. Not necessarily triple glazing window, because we're not trying to achieve passive house certification for our units. We are just trying to make them more energy efficient to run and sustainable in that. So double glazing is fine for what we do in the units, but that's our sort of main goal with our developers, is that we are trying to make sure the fabric of the walls and the house are actually built to a much better U value standard than traditional build.
Fantastic. And I think that's a really good point there, that it's always a balance, isn't it, between obviously everybody wants the planet to be able to, sustain, and as we're still facing challenges on that, but again, balancing that, as you say, with the affordability is kind of navigating that really well. And that's really useful to sort of hear it from your point of view as to the structural things that you're doing at that sort of, as you say, the pre-cosmetic phase. In terms of challenges then, as you say, we've got obviously, end of gas 2025 and further things coming online. Do you see any other kind of issues or challenges, whether we call it a problem or whether we call it an opportunity, I guess, but for the industry, and how to kind of, manage that, whether it be, labour, planning, and obviously keeping abreast of, legislation, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, I see the same problems happening now that happened to us as a vehicle manufacturer. The one big question we always get asked now is, why don't we build highly bespoke exhibition vehicles anymore? And the simple reason is you just can't find the skilled staff. Back in the 90s, early 2000s, we had a really great team of highly skilled engineers that could build anything, and they didn't even need the most complicated drawings. You could pretty much give them a sketch and these guys knew how to fabricate things, hydraulics, all sorts of clever stuff that we built over the years. And unlike construction, I hate to say it, but you put a piece of plasterboard up and you can hide a multitude of sins. You couldn't do that with the stuff we built. Everything had to be highly engineered. When it was folded in and driven to an exhibition, it had to hydraulically fold out to the most perfect building that you've seen. Otherwise, the client wouldn't be very happy, considering they're probably paying £500,000 for this truck in the first place.
The next problem that's going to be, and we knew this problem was coming for a while, but it's really now hit us, is the timber shortage that's going on at the minute, and it is causing timber prices to skyrocket, which, if not careful, will start to make developments unaffordable. Mm-hmm. We do like concrete. There is the arguments that it's not sustainable as other products, and I won't go into that in too much detail, but the reality is the price of concrete just hasn't changed over the years, and it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. So that means that as a developer or a main contractor, we know what we can price things at now and in the future. With timber prices changing every single time, you can't, it's really hard to do that. Even steel is going the same way. When some of the steel fabrication work that we do, we go to the steel merchants to get a quote, and they will literally give us a quote for 24 hours because they cannot guarantee that price for any longer than that. And it's not feasible. Like, I can't go to my client and go, here's a quote, you've got 24 hours, take it or leave it, because it doesn't work like that.
And that's they are definitely problems that we see coming up. Hopefully planning's always going to be an issue for developers. It does depend on what council you're in. Some councils are a lot more proactive than other councils. I'm building a project in a council in the southeast, and they've been really proactive. I've had a pre-app meeting within a week of booking it, and we're getting a response, really quickly. I'm building another project in the east of England. I put in a pre-app application on the 8th of August, and I've still not received a reply yet. When you've got the government saying, and Boris saying, build, we want us to put homes up quickly. We've got a 300,000 year target, and we're only hitting about 150,000 of that. Well, we're not going to build homes very quickly if it's almost taking over 6 months, if not close to a year, to get any sort of where closer to getting planning permission on a site, and that's just going to sit there doing absolutely nothing, when that could have, if we had a much more efficient planning department, that could have easily been sorted, and we could have been underway now building it and providing, and these are homes that we're trying to provide at affordable rates. So there are legislation or planning issues that do hold things up, but then they've always been there. It's not like this has just happened. Planning's always been a nightmare in one respect with whoever you worked with. It's more actually labour shortages and material costs, etc., that is going to become a real sort of big problem moving forward, and it's not going to get any better.
Let's zero in on that a little bit. So in terms of, there's two things there, I wanted to come back to. So regarding labour then, so as you said, there's been a sort of, I suppose they're interlinked, aren't they? As you say, you've got to have the craftspeople, master craftspeople, and also, as you say, those raw materials. So from the labour point of view then, do you see it as it's kind of, we've become very tech dependent, or people are just trained different ways? Or if you were to sort of think, what would you think it might be?
I think if you take my age, for example, when I was growing up and going to university, there wasn't many of my friends who wanted to get on site and learn a trade. Most people wanted to go to university, get an office job, go and work behind a computer, and that's what the majority of people did my age. And that's been half the problem with the labour shortages. There hasn't been enough encouragement through education or through even governing bodies, trade bodies, to really encourage young people who are coming up to go and get a trade and go and work on site and follow that sort of path of career. It's definitely been more the work from a computer, and I can't blame them. That was me for many years before I joined the family business. That's what I did. I was in advertising, and I was in advertising for many years.
So I totally get it, but unfortunately that has had a negative effect on the marketplace. It just means that there aren't enough young people coming up who want to learn a trade, who want to be on site, and therefore as a result we're now sort of seeing the detrimental effects of that.
In terms of, also you mentioned obviously timber and steel. I mean, is that was that pre-COVID? Was that an issue? Was that to do with supply?
It's a very good question. It's a very good question. The steel merchants are blaming Brexit. That's why they won't give you a fixed price anymore. We used to be able to ring up a steel merchant and give them a tonnage amount, and they give you a price. Now there's every excuse under the sun why they can't give you a tonnage price, and they need this information, they need that, and blah blah blah, and they're all sort of blaming Brexit. So COVID's definitely had a huge effect on the construction industry. When we went into the first lockdown, I mean, you couldn't get certain materials for love nor money, and things haven't really recovered at the pace they recovered at. On average, we find that where we used to be able to buy stuff in, say, 24 hours, it's now probably taking 4 or 5 days. It is getting better, don't get me wrong. Things are starting to pick up again. Fingers crossed. We don't have any construction site lockdown like we did with the first lockdown, and things should start to return to the normal rates they were. But yeah, absolutely, Brexit and COVID have definitely had an effect on everything.
Yeah. And I suppose it's that thing of, at some point, I guess we'll all be able to breathe out, but it's a little while yet, isn't it? So I guess we've got to keep doing what we can in the meantime.
Absolutely.
Now we should obviously be checking out your your company and the exciting projects that are coming up. You mentioned a couple, was East and Southeast. So if you just sort of tell me a little bit so we can identify those and kind of look out for them as they come online.
Sure. So in the southeast, where our main office is, in the east of England, where our main office is in Peterborough, we've got a few of our own developments that we're working on at the minute. We're in planning for 14 units currently, and we are building a couple of pair of semis on the outskirts of Peterborough using an MMC system, a new to the market MMC system. In the southeast, we mainly work with developers in the southeast. So we're working with an SME developer who has several projects all over the southeast, ranging from a site with one house to a site with sort of 5 to 10 units. And we're helping them adopt MMC into their developments at the minute. So last year we really should have started a lot of developments with them, but obviously due to COVID everything got stopped. This year again we're hoping to pick up where we left off last year and sort of get back on site with a lot of their projects, again looking at incorporating a new to the market MMC system for them.
Fantastic. So really good to hear. And if someone wanted to hear, more from you in kind of, your thoughts on things going forward, where can we find you online? Social handles?
Yeah, you can go to our website, globalvtech.co.uk. If you put an inquiry on there, that will come through to one of us. My LinkedIn is Giulio D. So again, if you send me a message via LinkedIn, happy to sort of have a chat with you. I mean, I'm always open to have a chat with developers about what they're working on and stuff like that. It's no problem. I get asked all the time if I can have a look at a site to give my opinion on what we think an MMC system might work in there. So absolutely free to chat to anyone who's interested.
Fantastic. It's been great to hear your take on the industry, Giulio, and I like the way you just did Giulio D there. That's what I should stick to, then I don't have to embarrass myself with any Italian pronunciation. It's been a while, I'm a bit rusty. Now, the way we always wrap up these interviews, and you've had a chance, we're really pleased about it to obviously hear what you guys have been up to and how you're innovating, which is brilliant. We always end with a sort of stick or twist question. So what we mean by this is obviously, you're in development at the moment. Do you always see that you'll be, this is sort of your bag, or do you think are there other sort of entrepreneurial or other creative endeavors that you think you might twist to sometime in the future, would you say?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would be lying if I said I could give you a straight answer on that one. I'd like to say that, yes, I could stick to doing property development because I do enjoy it. I am passionate about it. I'm passionate about MMC, but I'm also an entrepreneur at heart. So, and I've invested and been involved in many other businesses in the past. And, when I was in advertising, I ran my own ad agency for a number of years. So I can never say never to new opportunities. I've always liked startups and I've always liked working with entrepreneurs and startups. So yeah, I was going to say I would be dishonest if I said I would definitely stick to property developing for the next X amount of years.
Well, we won't tie you to it, don't worry. But clearly you're being a great mentor, a brilliant mentor for people in that space. And as you say, up to the sort of SME level as well. And clearly there's lots that you could share with them. So it's been a real pleasure. And thanks so much for spending time with us today. There's always, a Bitcoin coach, of course, if everything else, talking about volatile markets. Fantastic. Well, it's been really good to spend some time with you today, Giulio. I know you're a very busy guy, so we really appreciate you dropping in to our little podcast. We look forward to keeping up with what you're up to in the next few years.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
We do genuinely want to give developers some a chance to shout about what they do and cross-pollinate and and talk about the issues that are facing. It's like mental health in the last year. A lot of people come out and more people are talking about it, and I think that's sort of the way it is now. It's just about not worrying about being an early adopter, or if you say something that it's just like, just get out in the space and just kind of talk about and I think relevancy is key. And you clearly you're sort of on the
at the front line. So thanks so much.
No, very, very welcome. I enjoyed it. It was good.
Okay, good. That's fine.